والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام. Today's topic, inshallah, after mentioning some verses of the Quran, كما قال الله عز وجل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم ما بعد. The topic of today, inshallah, is one of massive importance for us, especially in a time where time has become very precious, as in it passes by very quickly. And that is exactly the topic that we're going to be discussing today, inshallah, is the importance of time. And how relevant is it? And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ and the righteous predecessors have to say about this concept or this understanding of time? And what does it mean to us as believers and Muslims in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His prophets and messengers? So I'm going to, inshallah, just mention briefly how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes time in the Quran, how the Prophet ﷺ talks about time briefly, how the righteous predecessors understood the importance of time, and then inshallah we'll discuss lastly some just practical points in how we can take advantage of time in general and how we can better prepare ourselves for the time, and that is the time of our death and ultimately the time of the Day of Judgment. Nasallallahu as-salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He swears by something in the Quran, it is agreed upon by the Mufassirin in terms of their methodology. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by something in the Quran, there's at least two things to understand from this. Number one is it is to grab your attention, because it's a form of emphasis. And number two, it is to show the importance and benefit of that by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by. And the unique thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing by time in the Quran is that He swears by time both as a whole and in parts. As a whole, we know a very common and well-known example is وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَى آخِرِ السُّورَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by time as a whole. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many parts in the Quran, especially for those of us who are familiar with the last juz of the Quran, swears by portions of time, al-fajr, al-ashr, wal-duha, wal-layl, idha saja, etc., etc. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يُقَلِّبُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns the day and the night. هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ خِلْفَةً لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَذَّكَّرَ وَأَرَادَ شُكُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He has made the night and the time so that whoever wants to be thankful can be thankful, etc., etc. There's many verses on the issue of time. But it's unique, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by it in many forms, in many ways. وَشَهْرُ Ramadan discussed. And how time, even time, we take from the wisdom that even time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferenced certain parts of time over others. In the same way He has preferenced certain people over others. And certain individuals may receive certain bounties that others do not. And there's the same understanding is carried forth in time. And so we learn from this that within time there are times where it's better to do something over something else. And when it is time where it may be rewarded and obligatory and mandatory to fast, and where are times where it's haram, the same action. A lot of wisdom to gain from this little insight, and this is a very long topic, and obviously there's many references in terms of books, etc., to discuss this issue in detail. Now, in terms of how the Prophet ﷺ had described time, again, there's many narrations. I'm only going to mention just a couple here, just so we can get a taste of how the Prophet ﷺ discussed and talked about time. In a very famous narration from Ibn Abbas, in which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, the very famous narration, take advantage of 5 before 5. And one of them is what? فَرَاغَكَ قَبْلَ شُغُلِكَ. So it's like your free time before your busyness. Your free time before your busyness. Now the interesting thing is the other 4 items that the Prophet ﷺ mentions in this narration narrated by Imam Ahmad al-Bayhaqi, al-Hakim, etc. It is a sahih narration. Is that they all have to do with time. They're all related to time. Whether it be your life before your death, or your busyness before your free time, or your health before your sickness, etc. So they all have to do with time. And another narration where the Prophet ﷺ tells Mu'adh bin Jabal is that the slave on the day of judgment will not be allowed to move until he's asked about 4 things. And one of them is his time and how he spent it. And the Prophet ﷺ, because he was so keen on using his time correctly and wisely, and that which Allah pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, used to make dua against things that prohibited or inhibited the correct usage of time. And the very famous dua that I'm sure we all know of. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa a'udhu bika min al-'azzi wal-kasal ila akhir dua. The Prophet used to say, Allah, I seek refuge from you min al-hammi wal-hazan, from depression and sadness. Min al-'azzi wal-kasal, and from ajal is a type of laziness and a type of inability. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help him use the best of his time. Because there's no doubt that being in a state of depression or sadness or being lazy or procrastinating will take away from the benefit and the barakah of your time and make it useless and basically not able to fulfill the rights that time has upon you. The Prophet ﷺ further mentioned there are 2 blessings in the narration of Sahih Bukhari, 2 blessings which people are deceived about, meaning they deceive themselves in understanding its importance. As-sihhata wal-waqt wal-faragh, and the health and free time. Health and free time, the most 2 underrated blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each and every single one of us at one point in time or another. Because we know that changes and there's always exceptions. And another narration, the Prophet ﷺ again mentioned something similar, and that just to reimpose upon, like for example, the famous story of Salman al-Farisi when he went to Abu Dhar and he spent time with them and he saw that he was very busy with his ibadat and etc. etc. And then he basically told Abu Dhar that you have to manage your time correctly. You can't just do ibadat all day long and forget about everything else. And they went to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet agreed ﷺ with Salman al-Farisi's advice. Again, about time management, how to use your time effectively, and the rights that you have on others. And it all goes back to time as well. And so there's no doubt that time holds an eminent importance in our lives, day to day, whether it be at work or outside of work, but even more importantly with our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And under our understanding of our purpose in life. And there's 2 ways I want to discuss here, I'm sure there are more. How we should perceive our relationship and our interaction with time. First one is that time is an amana. Time is a trust. And how do where do I get this understanding from? Where is this, where do I get it from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the end of Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّ عَرْضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ. In the end of the verse is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed or presented the amana on the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they declined. But al-insan hamala al-insan, the insan took it on. Now the scholars of commentary, for the most part, they describe this amana, the ability to disobey or obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In essence, if you really think about it, that is time. Because what you do in time defines who you are. And it defines the purpose that you live for and the values that you have taken upon yourself. So time is an amana. It is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about because it defines you. What you do in your time is who you are. I mean, think about it. I don't have to go into detail to explain this. The other way to think about time, the other perception to understand time, is that the Messenger ﷺ mentioned in the narration This is a sahih narration, and there's many renditions of this narration, but he mentioned, alayhi salatu wassalam, لا تسبوا الدهر فإن الله هو الدهر. Do not curse time, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is time. And it's a very interesting statement, because someone may also misunderstand from this narration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is time, and you know, one scholar was famous for taking the position that the time is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that's not true. The time is actually a creation of Allah. And the reality understanding this narration is that time is something that is controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're not allowed to put it down. For example, in many cultures you may say, oh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from this, may curse the day that you were born, or curse the time that this happened. And this is all incorrect. This is all not permissible in Islam. So we have to be very careful. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, time is His creation. And He's the one that controls it, and He is one that creates all of your amal. He creates what you do. And so to put down time is similar, akin to someone who bursts out in outrage when someone dies, for example, and they go into excess and they start what is known in a jihadi practice that they used to beat on themselves and scream. And this is all, again, going against the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we have to watch out. But it's interesting, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in a way where time is His creation, and the way we interact with time is going to be asked about, and we're going to be tested in the same way we interact with any other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it be you and I, or our family members, or the animals, or the environment, all of these things are interactions with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And time is no different. And so how you interact with time defines who you are as well. And that this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about how you spent your time. What did you do with it? It's a big ni'mah, it's a big blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did you do with that time? And unfortunately we live in a society where, you know, leisure and entertainment is the only option outside of work. You know, we have this perception, okay, I'm going to go on vacation now. I'm done with work. Now I can watch TV, I can do this, and I don't have to think. I want to just zone out, to relax. But in reality, that is not what Islam teaches. Yes, there's a time for leisure, and there's no doubt that certain types of leisure could be haram, some may be acceptable, and others you may get rewarded for, based on intention, on action, and your understanding of what you're doing. And so we want to, inshallah, the hope is, and I'm a reminder for myself more than anybody else, is that we want to focus our leisure time in a way that benefits us at minimum, if not everybody around us. Because just watching TV to a show that we know contains material that may be explicit or things that may be incorrect is not something that you're going to benefit from. And it may very well be held against you on the Day of Judgment. And we just have to keep that in mind. The other thing to take away here, and this is something more of a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's very critical to understand this, is that since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created time, and it is creation, it is subject to His will, we have to understand that time is relative. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about theory of relativity, Einstein, that's not what I'm talking about here, although it's somewhat related. But what I'm talking about is that sometimes, we're in this society, we're struggling to be good Muslims, we're being patient, we're fighting against our lower desires, whatever it may be in their shapes and forms and sizes, they come in a plethora of ways in this society, unfortunately. And we may start thinking that, oh man, we're just so far away from getting reward for our patience, for example. And this is really more of a satanic whispering. Shaitan trying to make you stop being patient. But the reality is, you have to understand is that by being patient, obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the time that you feel, the relative time that you feel after your death, until بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِرَحْمَتِهِ تَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ, you will enter heaven by the mercy and will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will feel like nothing. Whereas on the opposite end, someone who has disbelieved and has taken their own desires as a form of worship, as a form of something that they follow, will feel the exact opposite. And this is mentioned many times in the Quran. Will be asked, how long have you stayed? How long have you stayed on this earth? They'll say a day. In another verse, sa'a, 1 hour. So why is it different? Because it depends on how sinful and disobedient that individual was. The more sinful and disobedient you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you will feel like the life that you lived in this life to be nothing. Because you'll be waiting in your grave, you'll be waiting on the Day of Judgment for your hisab, and then all of a sudden you will find yourself in hellfire because of your disobedience. And your whole life, because of the time that you waited in the grave and on the Day of Judgment, will feel like an hour. Imagine 80 years feeling like an hour relative to the time that you spent after your death waiting for your hisab and your final judgment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas on the other end, as narrated by the Prophet ﷺ, for the believer, the Day of Judgment will feel like Salat al-Dhuhr or Salat al-Asr. Imagine a day that's 50,000 years, but will feel to you, relatively speaking, the time it takes to pray one prayer, Salat al-Dhuhr, Salat al-Asr, 5-10 minutes. After your death, same thing. You're in the grave, you feel like it's 5 minutes. Allah, subhanAllah, it's already the Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment, you're there 10 minutes, and mashallah, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted your deeds, He has forgiven you for your miscomings, your shortcomings, and you're in paradise, inshallah. 15 minutes after your death. So imagine, Shaitan is able to convince you that you can't be patient, or that you're patient, you're going to wait too long, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in on a day where only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can save you from yourself as well as from others. Now I'm going to transition quickly into how some of the righteous predecessors understood the value of time. And there's one particular story I'd like to share that Imam Hassan al-Basri, very famous tabi'i, one of the scholars of the early generations after the companions. In his reflection on Surah Al-Asr, he was once walking in the street and he heard a man calling out. And this man was an ice seller. They used to, obviously, because there's no freezers in that time, there's no refrigerators. Ice was, a luxury, it was a commodity. And so they had people who developed systems to cool water and freeze it, and they would sell ice. And so this man, it was very hot weather in the parts where Hassan al-Basri was in Kufa, etc. It was melting, this ice was melting. And so he called out to the people, he said, "Oh people, have mercy on the one whose capital is melting away. Have mercy on the one whose capital, his inventory is literally melting before your eyes, meaning buy from me before it's all gone." And Hassan al-Basri, he said, subhanAllah, this is the reality of time for the believer. Is that time is your most valuable capital. We talk about money and property, assets, etc., etc. But in reality, the most valuable asset that you have is your time. And whenever you don't use it, it literally melts away from you. And you can never gain it back. Unlike with water, there's the possibility you can collect the water and refreeze it. But with time, there's no way. Once the opportunity of time is gone, it is an opportunity that never can be reseized. And the thing about it is, brothers and sisters, is something we don't know when our time is up. That's what one of the scholars of Islam mentioned. Each one of us is like a loaf of bread. It has a set amount of slices, and each person, his loaf is different sizes. But you don't know how big that loaf is. And every day you take a slice. Every day you take a slice, and there's no rebaking or putting back that slice. Imam rahimahullah Ibn Jawzi mentions that days are like the records of your deeds. Days are like the records of your deeds. So beautify your records with your deeds. And subhanAllah, also Abdullah ibn Mas'ud he mentioned that nothing is as incredible as a day that passes without having increased my good deeds, although it took away from my age. It took away from my time that I have on here. So again, emphasizing the importance of time, using time. Because every day you get older, right? The gray hairs increase, they don't decrease with time. Your body becomes more fragile. Things that you used to do in your 20s, you can't do in your 40s or 50s. And all of a sudden it'll get to a point where even basic things, like using the bathroom, possibly eating, possibly going up the stairs, you'll need help and assistance, like you did back when you were an infant. So that time is coming, unless Allah SWT takes it away before that. And there's no doubt about that. So this is why we want to stress the importance of using time before we get to a situation where we start eating other people's time because we can't do basic necessities in our life. So inshallah with that we'll go into the dua, and after that I'll finish off with just a few takeaways, some quick reflections. And there's a lot of topics, a lot of books, a lot of articles that talk about the usage of time and how to make the best of your time and time management, and these are all good. Whether they're written by Muslims or scholars or non-Muslims, you can always benefit from time management topics, as long as obviously they tell you to not do haram things with your time. So inshallah أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Just real quick, a couple quick announcements inshallah. Sheikh Suhail along with Qari Talib will be leading a 9-day, 8-night educational Umrah during spring break. That'll be from March 24th and through April 2nd. Information is in the back, I believe, and please see Brother Yusuf or Sister I think it might be Noura, but the name is not complete here, for more details. And lastly, inshallah, don't forget to donate generously to yourself. What I mean by that is donate to the masjid. And inshallah, don't forget yourself and other Muslims in your dua, inshallah. So inshallah, we'll be just ending with just a few takeaways, some things that we can do, some practical things we can do to take advantage of our time. The first thing that I want to advise myself and others with is you have to really, to take advantage of your time, to know how to use it correctly, you have to understand your purpose in life and your values. If you're struggling with what's my purpose in life and what are my values, there's no way you can be effective with your time. And let's be honest, your purpose in life is not to make shareholders richer. If you think that your purpose, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of us to a better purpose, if that's the purpose. But there's much more to it than that. And I'm not going to go into, that's a whole other topic, and we're not going to go into that. But you really have to understand what's your real purpose. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create you? And what values does that bring to you? What values does that instill within you when you understand that purpose? Number two, you need to put yourself in an environment that fulfills that purpose or those values. Because you will find that when you put yourself in an environment that shares those values and that purpose with what you already have and taken on for yourself, you can use your time management. You can manage your time correctly and use it to your advantage so that you don't regret, for example, watching too much TV or playing too many games, etc., etc. Number three, and this is a very critical one, is you need to make sure that your acquaintances and your friends agree and in line with your purpose and your values. Because if you find that you struggle with your friends in what they do, in terms of how they spend their time, and you find yourself saying no most of the time, or I can't do that, I'm Muslim, I can't drink that, I don't, all the time, and it's always a constant struggle, that's a waste of time. And you need to really surround yourself with people that share your purpose and your values to make sure that you make the most of your time. Because when you're around like-minded people, then you start making changes in society. You make changes that reflect, first of all, in and on yourself, as well as people around you. And that's how civilization is created, is built. And the last one is you have to really understand your strengths and weaknesses as an individual and as a Muslim. And it's all in all its shapes and forms. If you know you're not good at a certain thing, then don't spend too much time in it. Find your talent, find your genius, because everybody has one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given and apportioned His ni'mah in different ways to different people. So find what it is that you are exceptionally good at and work on honing it and use it to the advantage of yourself and others around you. Not everybody is built to be an exceptional A+ salesperson or a magnificent oratory deliverer that will make people lose their mind or whatever it may be. Very few people are given those types of talents, and to be honest with you, other talents are actually much better and much greater, but they're not very appreciated. So find what it is that you're good at, work on it, perfect it, and give it back to others around you. And giving it back to others around you, you're giving it to yourself. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever is thankful, فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ نَفْسَهُ, then he is truly only thankful to himself. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anybody. He does not need us to do da'wah. It's not something that he is depending on us for. Islam does not need da'is because it's going to fail overnight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he wished, if we're not doing our job, he will create a new generation that will love Islam, they will love him, and he will love them. And through them he will propagate Islam. He doesn't need us. And it actually, the scholars mention it as an honor and blessing if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses you in his cause. So don't think the other way around. Don't think like, oh, I'm doing such a service to the community, mashallah, where's my award, my trophy, my check. No, if that is your perspective, stay home. You're better off that way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need us. And inshallah, with that, I will end the khutbah. Just inshallah, a quick reminder. We'll end with some dua and then the closing dua, inshallah. But again, we're here for a limited amount of time. There's nobody knows when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for us to meet him. And when that time comes, and it's coming for each and every one of us, there's no exception whatsoever, then you have to make sure that you're prepared for that time. And the only way that you can be prepared is to make sure that you use that time in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And it doesn't mean you have to be worshipping 24/7, because the definition of ibadah in Islam is a very broad definition. So remember that. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا ولسائر المسلمين. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. اللهم لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا ولسائر المسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين في كل مكان. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه ولا تكفرون وأقم الصلاة.